Okay, in this tutorial, I want to talk to you about creating contrast, and this time we're going to use a hue and saturation layer. First thing I'm going to do is move my layers panel up here just so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit easier. Right now I've got some text, and I chose the color for the text based on this dandelion here. I've got my field and just a background layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the field layer. So when I put my adjustment layer in, it's going to come above the field layer and below the text layer because I don't want the adjustment layer affecting the text. So the adjustment layer button is right down here next to, well, it looks like a little tuxedo cookie. And I'm going to come up and select hue and saturation. So please do that. Let's add a hue and saturation layer. Now within a hue and saturation layer, you have the properties icon here. So if I have my properties collapsed and I want to see the properties again, I can just double click there. So these are the properties that we're going to adjust. And then you have a mask, and later we're going to play around with the mask as well. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the properties so that I get the properties of the mask. The properties of the adjustment layer. And the first thing you can do is you can just bump up the saturation. So that's one way of creating contrast here. So for example, I'm going to bump up the concentration or the saturation, and you can see it. If you push this too much, it's going to look like a nuclear bomb just went off and everything's radioactive. So be careful pushing that too far. And in fact, in just a second, I'll show you a little bit more subtle way to adjust saturation. So that's one thing you can do. And if you want to create contrast, though, we might want to do the opposite. So dropping the saturation is another way of creating contrast. Because I've got a nice bright colorful title, I could drop the saturation and it'll still have some color, but now the contrast and really my emphasis is going to be on the bright colored poster, prevention poster title, because it's got some contrast there. The last thing I wanted to show you with hue and saturation is this really cool button right down here, Colorize. So when you click on that, it creates what looks like a color filter over the top. And that really looks nice. So again, I can bump up the color saturation here with this slider or decrease it. I'm going to move it up just a little. So now I've got a nice cool blue with a warm yellow title over the top. A lot of contrast now. So this is a great way. Now you can change the color right here, the hue, but I actually liked that blue for my poster because of the yellow and blue kind of go well together. So that's the first of our color contrast examples. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this into a folder. So I'm going to go up here to my Layers Flyout menu and choose New Group from Layers. And it's going to put this one into a layer. And let's call it Color Contrast. And go ahead and hit OK. And then we're going to go ahead and hide this layer and choose try a different technique in the next tutorial.